It's exciting because it's great to King Charles. Love your coronation napkins in the...
We're all over it.
All over it. And I think British Airways want me to put some books into all the lounges.
After 30 years of silence, Sarah Ferguson has finally shared her side of the story, and it's causing a big stir at the palace. She revealed that the British royal family did not just leave her behind, they ruined her life. Now, the surprising story she kept secret for many years is coming to light. What really happened to the Duchess of York? How did a lively and cheerful young woman become one of the most ridiculed people in British royal history? Join us as we explore the true story of Sarah Ferguson's rise, fall, and survival. A childhood that fell apart before it began. Sarah Margaret Ferguson is the second daughter of Major Ronald Ferguson and Susan Wright. Her dad was a soldier and a polo coach, and he later managed polo for Prince Charles. Her mom came from a rich family that had connections to King Charles. It looked like she had a good and stable start in life, but things were very different at home. In later interviews, Sarah said that her childhood was toxic. She told the Sunday Times that her mom would hit her if she didn't eat her semolina, and she said her mom needed to beat the devil out of her. Her dad would also call her hurtful names. And while neither parent seemed to realize the lasting damage they were causing, the effects on young Sarah were real and deep. She developed an unhealthy relationship with food by the age of 12, turning to overeating for comfort during a time when her world was beginning to fall apart. In 1972, when Sarah was just 12 years old, her mother, Susan, left the family to be with an Argentine polo player named Hector Barrantes. Susan eventually moved to Argentina, married Barrantes in 1975, and left both of her daughters behind in England to be raised by their father. Sarah later told the television show Loose Women that when her mother left, it made her feel worthless. She also shared that, as a little girl, she would leave notes in her mother's dressing room that said, "Mummy, please don't die in a car crash." Sadly, many years later, Susan Barrantes did die in a head-on car crash in Argentina in September 1998. She was 61 years old and wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Sarah was heartbroken, and the fear she had carried since she was a child came true in the worst way possible. The abandonment by her mother became the wound that Sarah carried into every relationship and every decision that followed. She later said she walks into every room thinking she is ugly and fat, and that her red hair is silly and curly. She said she has no confidence, even when standing in front of thousands of people who tell her they are pleased to see her. That insecurity did not come from the tabloids or from the royal family. It started long before either of those entered her life. But what happened when a girl carrying that kind of damage walked straight into the most scrutinized family in the world? The fairy tale that was already fracturing. Sarah Ferguson met Prince Andrew through Princess Diana at the Royal Ascot in 1985. They had known each other since they were kids, seeing each other at polo matches. But it was Diana who helped them reconnect that summer. They felt an instant attraction. Andrew was charming and confident, while Sarah was lively and warm, which was a nice change in the formal royal world. They got engaged within a few months, and on July 23, 1986, they married at Westminster Abbey in a ceremony that about 500 million people watched around the world. The Queen gave Prince Andrew the title of Duke of York, and Sarah was given the title of Her Royal Highness the Duchess of York. Initially, she was well-liked by the public and was seen as a cheerful and energetic member of the royal family. Andrew created her engagement ring, which featured 10 sparkling diamonds surrounding a beautiful Burmese ruby that complemented her red hair perfectly. It all appeared to be a lovely and romantic story. However, their relationship began to experience difficulties almost immediately after their wedding. Andrew worked in the Royal Navy, which meant he had to be away from home for long periods. Biographer Sarah Bradford noted that in the first 5 years of their marriage, they only spent about 40 days together each year. Sarah confirmed this later, and it became a major issue in their relationship. She felt lonely in the palace with a new baby, surrounded by strict rules, watched by the media, and cut off from the husband she wanted to be with. Their first daughter, Princess Beatrice, was born in August 1988, and their second daughter, Princess Eugenie, was born in March 1990. By that time, problems in their marriage were already starting to show. The tabloid press had turned on her early. During her first pregnancy, when her weight increased, Newspapers mocked her relentlessly. They compared her to Princess Diana, who was slimmer and more photogenic, and the coverage was vicious. Sarah was called the Duchess of York in headlines, and the ridicule followed her everywhere she went. She tried to carry on with royal duties, but the atmosphere inside the family and outside it was growing colder by the day, and then everything collapsed in a way that would follow her for the rest of her life. The separation that became a public execution. By 1991, the relationship between Andrew and Sarah was under serious strain. Sarah had grown close to a Texan multimillionaire named Steve Wyatt, and photographs of the two of them together appeared in newspapers in January 1992. Biographer David Lee later said that Wyatt was the main reason for the breakdown of the marriage, describing how Sarah fell head over heels for the man at a time when she felt Andrew was not supporting her. The Duke and Duchess of York announced their separation on March 19, 1992, and the palace immediately stated that Ferguson would no longer undertake public engagements on behalf of the Queen. The Queen also confirmed she would not be responsible for Ferguson's debts. Then came the photographs that changed everything. In August 1992, the Daily Mirror published secretly taken images of American financial manager John Bryan kissing Ferguson's toes while she sunbathed topless at a villa in the south of France. The photos were published while Sarah was staying at Balmoral with the royal family. That morning was very upsetting. The newspapers were spread out on the breakfast table like usual, and her brothers-in-law were flipping through the pages, looking at pictures of her in revealing clothes. It was a very embarrassing moment for her, and everyone saw it. The consequences were harsh. Princess Margaret wrote to Sarah saying, "You have brought more shame to the family than anyone could have imagined." Prince Philip, the Queen's husband, didn't talk to Ferguson for 10 years. He only spoke to her again in 2018 when he went to Princess Eugenie's wedding because she asked him to. Ferguson was basically pushed out of the royal family. She wasn't invited to important family events, and people often debated whether they wanted her at gatherings. The divorce was finalized on May 30, 1996. Sarah received a settlement that included roughly £500,000 from the Queen to purchase a home, a £1.4 million trust for her daughters, and a modest annual allowance. She was no longer Her Royal Highness. She was now simply Sarah, Duchess of York, a title she continued using for nearly 3 decades until 2025, when Andrew himself was stripped of his royal titles in the wake of the Epstein scandal. But losing her title was the least of her problems. What followed was a financial disaster that nearly destroyed her completely. In the years immediately following her divorce, Sarah Ferguson became known in the British press as the Duchess of Debt. By November 1995, even before the divorce was final, her debts already exceeded £3.7 million. She needed bank approval to sign even modest checks, and the Queen had already stepped in to cover her debts on several occasions, including one emergency payment of £500,000 when the bank Coutts demanded immediate repayment. Former staff said that her home was always extravagant, and bills were often unpaid. A former financial advisor mentioned that she spent about £860,000 each year, which included £300,000 on staff, £150,000 on gifts, £50,000 on flowers, £50,000 on parties, £150,000 on travel, and £100,000 on clothes. The owner of Harrods, Mohammed Al-Fayed, reportedly never asked her to pay her bill at his store, and she also took advantage of this at other shops. 7 of her staff members left in just 1 year, and many stories about her tough management style were shared. Sarah tried to fix her finances in the United States, and people there accepted her better than in Britain. She spent 11 years as a spokesperson for Weight Watchers, wrote a series of children's books about a character called Budgie the Little Helicopter, published 2 autobiographies, toured American talk shows, and took paid speaking engagements. In 2006, she started a lifestyle company called Heartmore LLC, but it collapsed 3 years later and left her carrying an extra £630,000 in debt. By 2010, her total debts were estimated somewhere between £2 and £5 million, and she was reported to be considering voluntary bankruptcy. The Queen was said to be worried that Ferguson would become the first member of the extended royal family to be declared legally bankrupt. That outcome was avoided in the end. though partly through a payment of £15,000 arranged by Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted offender, an association that would later bring serious consequences of its own. The financial desperation was real, and it drove Ferguson toward decisions she would later deeply regret. But first came the moment that was caught on camera for the whole world to see: the cash for access sting. On May 23, 2010, the British tabloid News of the World released undercover footage that shook what was left of Ferguson's public reputation. A reporter named Majer Mahmood, posing as a wealthy businessman, had secretly filmed Sarah offering access to Prince Andrew in exchange for money. In the video, Ferguson could be seen sitting in front of $40,000 in cash and heard negotiating a future payment of £500,000. She said plainly, £500,000, when you can, to me, opens doors. Ferguson accepted the cash deposit that day. She later told Oprah Winfrey that the initial $40,000 was intended for a friend who urgently needed money, and that the larger figure was something she threw out impulsively without really thinking. She said she was a huge, overtrusting, idiotic, stupid woman who walked straight into a trap. Andrew's office immediately distanced itself, stating that the prince had no knowledge of the meeting. The palace was furious. The scandal ruined what little respect Ferguson had left in royal circles. She was already on the edge, but the cash for access video pushed her out even more. Later, she sued Newsgroup newspapers, saying the sting cost her £40 million in lost money, including possible deals in books, TV, and entertainment. The lawsuit explained how she lost money from book deals, cartoon shows, and business partnerships that disappeared after the video came out. It's unclear if those deals would have happened without the scandal, but it was clear that her reputation was hurt badly. She called it a serious lapse of judgment and apologized publicly. But what most people did not see behind the headlines was how desperate her financial situation had actually become at that point. She was drowning in debt, alienated from the royal family, and running out of options. And the person she turned to next for help would eventually drag both her and Andrew into the biggest scandal the British monarchy had faced in decades. Sarah Ferguson first got connected to Jeffrey Epstein through her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, in the late 90s when she was struggling financially. In 2011, it was revealed that Epstein had paid £15,000 to help with Ferguson's debts, which was arranged by Andrew. This payment happened after Epstein had already been in prison for crimes involving a minor, making the financial link very concerning for everyone. For many years, Ferguson tried to distance herself from Epstein. But in January 2026, a massive release of documents from the Epstein files revealed email exchanges that told a very different story. In messages dating from 2009, when Epstein was under house arrest, Ferguson addressed him as "my dear, spectacular, and special friend Jeffrey," called him a supreme friend, and asked for his business advice on multiple projects. In one particularly desperate email from 2010, she reportedly offered to work as his house assistant, writing that she was the most capable and desperately needed the money. Ferguson's emails showed that she involved her daughters with Epstein, arranging a lunch with Beatrice and Eugenie at his Miami home in 2009. One email contained a rude comment about Princess Eugenie that received a lot of criticism when it became public. The release of the Epstein files had serious consequences. Many charities ended their relationships with Ferguson, including the Teenage Cancer Trust, which she had supported for 35 years. Her charity, Sarah's Trust, announced it was shutting down. 6 companies she managed started to close down. She was removed as a guest from ITV's Loose Women and This Morning. Ferguson's representative said she stopped talking to Epstein as soon as she learned about the serious accusations against him, but the emails seemed to prove that was not true. These new details made a tough time even worse for both Ferguson and Andrew, and things would only get worse in the coming months. Losing everything at Royal Lodge. For nearly 2 decades, Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew had maintained one of the most unusual living arrangements in modern royal history. Despite divorcing in 1996, the couple continued to live together at Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park, a 30-room mansion that had previously been the residence of the Queen Mother. Ferguson moved in around 2008, and the arrangement continued for years, with both insisting it was a practical family decision for the sake of their daughters and grandchildren. Princess Eugenie once described her parents as the best divorced couple she knew. But the Epstein scandal changed everything. In October 2025, under mounting pressure, Andrew relinquished his Duke of York title and all associated honors. King Charles initiated a formal process to strip him of his princely title as well. Ferguson lost her Duchess of York title at the same time, a title she had carried since her wedding day in 1986. Both removed the titles from their social media accounts and public presences. Then came the eviction. In early 2026, Andrew was moved out of Royal Lodge and relocated to Marsh Farm, a more modest property on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk, far from the center of royal life. Ferguson was left without a home. Reports indicated she had sold a London townhouse she had purchased in 2022, and her current living situation became officially unknown. Multiple reports suggested she was lying low in the United Arab Emirates, while others speculated she might move in with her eldest daughter, Princess Beatrice, at her home in the Cotswolds. After 30 years of living in and around royal residences, Ferguson found herself effectively homeless at the age of 66. The woman who had once been welcomed into Buckingham Palace as a princess was now searching for somewhere to live, with no title, no home, and a reputation in tatters. But this was not the first time life had knocked her down, and the way she had handled adversity in the past suggested she might not stay down for long. Fighting cancer alone in the spotlight. In June 2023, Sarah Ferguson was diagnosed with breast cancer following a routine mammogram that she had nearly skipped. Her sister Jane convinced her to go at the last minute, and the screening revealed an early-stage cancer that was completely symptom-free. Ferguson had never found a lump and did not feel ill. She underwent a mastectomy and began the difficult process of recovery, sharing her experience publicly to encourage other women not to skip their screenings. By the end of 2023, she was optimistic enough to announce on social media that she had beaten cancer. But in January 2024, during reconstructive surgery following her mastectomy, her dermatologist asked that several moles be removed and analyzed. One of them came back positive for malignant melanoma, the most aggressive form of skin cancer. Ferguson was 64 years old and facing her second cancer diagnosis in less than a year. She described the news as a shock and said the double diagnosis felt like a death sentence and like a bomb going off in her life. Further surgery confirmed that the melanoma had not spread to her lymph nodes or surrounding tissue, which was a significant relief. But the emotional toll was enormous. She credited her daughters and her faith as sources of strength during recovery, and she became a vocal advocate for cancer awareness, launching a campaign called "Don't Skip Your Screening on Loose Women." In October 2024, she became patron of Prevent Breast Cancer, the UK's only charity focused specifically on predicting and preventing the disease. The struggles with cancer happened at a time when Ferguson was already facing the fallout from the Epstein situation, financial difficulties, and feeling more alone from the royal family. She encountered some of the toughest health challenges she had ever faced while also seeing her public image fall apart. Despite all this, she continued to speak openly about her situation, encouraged others to get their health screenings, and made sure to be present in public. This strength and determination had always been a part of her life, even when everything around her seemed to be crumbling. If there is one thread that runs through the entire story of Sarah Ferguson, it is the role the British tabloid press played in shaping, destroying, and profiting from her life. From the moment she entered the royal family, the media treated her as both a source of entertainment and a target for cruelty. She was compared endlessly to Princess Diana, and the comparisons were never in her favor. Diana was the fairy tale princess. Fergie was the punchline. The weight-shaming alone was relentless. During her first pregnancy, when she gained weight, tabloids gave her the nickname Duchess of Pork and ran it as a regular feature. Her fashion choices were mocked. Her behavior was scrutinized for any departure from royal protocol. When she traveled to Australia shortly after Princess Beatrice was born, leaving the baby at home, the press attacked her for being a bad mother. When she stayed home, she was invisible. There was no version of Sarah Ferguson that the tabloids would leave alone. After the leaked pictures in 1992, the teasing never stopped. She was no longer just someone people talked about. She became a symbol of trouble and drama. Every money problem she had was on the front page of the news. Every time she showed up in public, people made fun of her. Even when she tried to improve her life with Weight Watchers, writing children's books, and doing charity work, people still looked at her past mistakes. The press gave her no path back to respectability because her humiliation was too profitable. Ferguson herself acknowledged the damage this did to her mental health. She told an audience in 2016 that Beatrice and Eugenie were the reason she got out, saying it was because of her two girls that she decided it was important to carry on. The tabloids had built her up to knock her down, and they did it repeatedly for 30 years. But Ferguson never gave them the ending they seemed to want. What Sarah Ferguson has finally said. In recent years, Sarah Ferguson has started to speak more openly and honestly than she ever has before. After many years of giving only partial comments, being careful in interviews, and making managed public statements, she is now sharing her thoughts in a way that feels very different. In interviews with major newspapers like The Times, The Sunday Times, and The Telegraph, she has talked about her childhood struggles, the pain of her mother leaving her, her unsuccessful marriage, and the negative effects of being in the public eye for so long. This level of honesty has surprised many people who have followed her story for years. Sarah has shared how her mother's departure when she was just 12 years old left deep emotional scars that still affect her today. She explained that her parents used strict language and discipline methods that many would find unacceptable in today's world. Sarah has also confessed that she often turned to food for comfort during difficult times. The feelings of insecurity that began in her childhood continued to follow her into her marriage, through her divorce, and into every public event she has attended since then. She has been very candid about these experiences, revealing how they shaped her life and her view of herself. She told one interviewer that she walks into every room believing she is ugly and inadequate, and that 3 decades of being told those things by the press only reinforced what she already believed about herself. She has also been candid about the royal family itself, though she has always spoken warmly about the late Queen Elizabeth, calling her more of a mother than her own. She has made it clear that the institution of the monarchy was not designed to support someone like her. She was not born into royal life, and she was never fully accepted by it. And when the scandals came, the institution protected itself by pushing her out. She has said the system destroyed her in ways that most people will never fully understand, and that the cost of being a royal outsider was far higher than any privilege the title ever gave her. In late 2025 and early 2026, as the Epstein files brought renewed public scrutiny and her title, home, and remaining public roles were stripped away one by one, reports emerged that Ferguson was considering writing a tell-all memoir. Sources close to her told the Daily Express that she had diaries and evidence of backstabbing, scandals, and cover-ups, and that she had nothing left to lose. Whether that memoir will ever be written remains to be seen, but the fact that it is even being discussed tells you something about where Sarah Ferguson stands now, at the age of 66, with no title, no home, and a reputation that has been reduced to rubble. And yet, she is still here. She survived a childhood defined by abandonment. She survived a marriage that left her isolated inside the most scrutinized family on earth. She survived public humiliation on a scale that would have broken most people entirely. She survived 2 cancer diagnoses within a single year. She survived financial ruin, scandal after scandal, and the systematic dismantling of everything she had built over 4 decades. Whether you admire her or judge her, the one thing you cannot say about Sarah Ferguson is that she gave up. After everything that has happened, do you think Sarah Ferguson was treated fairly by the royal family and the media? Or was she a woman set up to fail from the very beginning? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.